Now, here's something that can be critical to an investigation, and it can also sink an investigation, even if it's the best, most meticulously conducted investigation on the planet. If it fails during the chain of custody, if and when it ever has to go to court, that could sink the investigation. So when collecting evidence, maintaining that chain of custody is crucial, as I mentioned. All right, so we want to make sure that we have no gaps in the chain of custody, because why? Well, because that can destroy a case. All right, so if, in other words, if there's a gap and we collect all of our evidence, we do all of our due diligence, we get our search warrant, we go in and we take possession of equipment, we document and do all the things that we're supposed to do, but then we bring that back to our headquarters or to our office or whatever the case might be, and we don't document where that evidence goes, whose hands it changes along the way, where it's stored, and so on and so forth. It's very easy for a defense attorney at that point to interject and say, well, wait a minute, how do we know this wasn't tampered with during the process? How do we know that this wasn't swapped out or something wasn't manipulated or tainted in some fashion? There's hours, there's days, there's weeks where no one really had eyes on this specific equipment. How do we know this is even my client's computer or hard drive? So you don't want to have that indiscrepancy come into the investigative process. So evidence can become contaminated, as I mentioned, if we don't have it accounted for each and every step of the way. So it also introduces reasonable doubt. And so, as I mentioned, a defense attorney can really turn the tables on an investigation. So it's important to lock this thing down tightly and to not leave any room or any chance for error. So again, when we're dealing with custody logs, it should accompany each piece of evidence. So everything that we secure, everything that we take away from a scene should have a chain of custody tag attached to it, an evidence tag, depending upon how your specific department or organization works. And that chain of custody tag, or whatever you want to call it, should have on it who basically acquired it, who received it, or who it was received from, the date and the time, and so on and so forth. And that should basically account for everything, including when it's logged into an evidence locker, when it's removed from an evidence locker. So there's no gaps in time. All right, so every time the evidence is logged in or out of evidence, or an evidence locker or some type of containment facility, or changes hands in any form, that should be documented. The date, the time, the location, the person checking it in, checking it out, and then seals and or tags on evidence bags. Again, if an evidence bag needs to be opened, then it should be written on there why that seal was broken and when a new seal is applied, and of course initialed and so forth. So that way everything is accounted for from the moment it is actually acquired to the moment it is no longer needed.